Although it began life as a notably successful and somewhat controversial arcade game in 1992, I think it's safe to say that most people back in the day had their share of the Mortal Kombat pie when the craze graced the home platforms less than a year later. Some folks had the Super Nintendo version's clean-cut competition edition, some people had the Genesis version that looked awkward but hey, it had blood, after a coda course. And some people toughed it out with the shoddy handheld versions or held out until the Sega CD version came out with its 20-year loading times and arcade quality music that played in the wrong stages. Me, I had the PC version for good old MS-DOS. That brings back so many memories.
Finish him! Liu Kang wins.
So many memories. Back in the day, I thought the PC version of Mortal Kombat was a pretty slick conversion and a rather respectable port of the arcade hit. In fact, I probably would have gone on a limb to say that this was the best port of Mortal Kombat that had played over the console versions at the time. I mean, the graphics were pretty good, the controls were surprisingly solid on the keyboard, most of the secrets were there, you had a clean video into character bios, and most importantly, you had all the blood and gore of the arcade original right from the get-go. You didn't need to input a code to enable the gore or a hacking device to recolor the sweat. It was all there in brilliant VG and I loved every minute of it.
Wins.
And now years later, with the recent Mortal Kombat relaunch for the current generation having been a resounding success, I find myself revisiting this older PC release thanks to the wonderful DOS Boss emulator program, which allows you to run a number of DOS-based programs that wouldn't be possible to run on current Windows platforms. So I decided to pop in Mortal Kombat for good old MS-DOS and play a few rounds for old time's sake. And yeah, this is still a solid port of the arcade classic, and it holds up tremendously well after all this time. So you probably already know the deal by now. 7 characters to choose from, play similarly enough, possess a few special moves, fight through the endurance rounds, fight Goro, fight Shang Tsung, and then there's the fatalities, each character possessing one such finishing maneuver to drive parents up to Arkham Asylum. And although relatively tame by today's bloody standards, back in the day this was a very big deal, and pretty much the sole reason behind Mortal Kombat's rise to immortality, no pun intended. Control in this version of Mortal Kombat is stupidly slick. I mean, even on the keyboard I was amazed by how effortlessly I was able to pull off moves without a hitch. There's no delay, there's no compensating for speed, there's no loading times, thank f*** for that. This was pure mortal bliss, and even though this DOS version felt a tad slower than its arcade counterpart, it never feels truly sluggish or slow even. It plays competently enough, the AI is fairly balanced even by Mortal Kombat standards, and runs at a respectable pace even on the default DOS box settings, which is very nice. The sound in Mortal Kombat on MS-DOS is somewhat of a mixed bag. You have all the voice samples here and they're all crisp and clear, but the sound effects are fairly average. Some sound good, others sound not so much. Like the spear, for example, sounds like a doorbell or something to that extent. The music itself doesn't necessarily match the tunes of the arcade original, but a couple of them sound close enough, closer than the Genesis version at least, and even in their own right, they're actually pretty good interpretations of the tunes. I say this despite the fact that they're mostly MIDI compositions, although it should be noted that the CD versions do have arcade quality music, but I don't have those versions, I have the floppy version, so I have to go with what I got. I dig the tunes in this version actually, so buzz off. The visuals in Mortal Kombat PC are pretty slick. They did a fairly good job with the visuals given the limited palette they had to work with at the time. It can be argued that there are some minor details lost here and there, but unless you're really nitpicky type, you probably never noticed. Personally, I thought it was probably the best looking home version of Mortal Kombat available at the time, and even today I still think it's a pretty good looking game. If it's not arcade perfect visuals, then it's pretty close, at least in my mind, if nobody else's. Overall, this is a pretty slick conversion of Mortal Kombat on MS-DOS. The game plays as well as it should, the graphics are pretty impressive and almost on par with the arcade original, and all the bloody content that made Mortal Kombat famous to begin with have been retained in all its glory. MIDI soundtrack aside, I often considered this to be the best home version of Mortal Kombat released at the time, and even today I still think it's a pretty solid conversion of the arcade classic. This one's definitely worth checking out if you're into Mortal Kombat and old school MS-DOS gaming, and if you manage to find a copy of the CD-ROM version, then you'll get the arcade soundtrack as well, which is a bonus. Either way, Mortal Kombat on MS-DOS is damn well done. Not quite a flawless victory, but good enough.